Pretty good record last week. Now we're starting to cook. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't let a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. No, seriously, that was an awful start, but we're starting to get back there. Grossi, and today we are going to be breaking down and predicting every single game in Week 8 of the NFL season. And last week, I went a very respectable 11-4. My biggest mistake was that Saints game because woof, I had some faith in the Saints. Never again. And that will bring me to a record of 64-43 on the season, but there is somebody who is doing much, much better than I, and they are in sole possession of first place, and that is Alan Coleman with a record of 80-27. Alan, a phenomenal job. You can still join the Pick'em League if you would like. The link is in the description. I'll take it out after week 9. I know it's late, but in case you want to join the fun, it's free. Link is in the description if you are interested. And so, starting off with Thursday Night Football, you got the Minnesota Vikings taking on the LA Rams. The Vikings coming off a loss against the Detroit Lions in a hard-fought game. That defense was fighting at the very end, got a massive turnover, and almost was able to sneak away with a win, but the Lions ultimately being victorious. Meanwhile, the Rams, they were able to get a win over the Vegas Raiders, and right now with the Rams, there's a lot going on. And it also seems that after a week of practices, Cooper Kupp is scheduled to play this Thursday against the Minnesota Vikings, which will give the Rams a big boost on offense. However, I don't know if it's going to be enough. But there's trade rumors going on with him, and apparently there's also Matthew Stafford trade rumors going around this week.
Can I stay with you?
What?
Can I stay with you, please?
Of course.
Really?
No.
But as long as both these guys are still on the squad, this should be a relatively good game. Of course, you want to see the Rams at full strength, which is just not happening right this second. And the Vikings, they have to worry about the Lions curse because every single team that plays the Lions the next week usually gets smacked. Can they avoid the curse because they're not playing next week? Technically, they're still playing this week after losing to the Lions on Sunday. That is going to be the big question. But ultimately, I think the Minnesota Vikings should bounce back from their loss against the Lions. I think if there's anything to get from that game, is not only are the Lions a very good team, but the Vikings are for real as well. For them to go toe-to-toe with the Lions, who have been on this hot streak, I think that says something about the quality of that team right now. I don't think they are perfect. We'll kind of see how Sam Darnold plays throughout the season, but right now, I'm going with the purple incarnation of Satan to get the win over Matthew Stafford. And Rams, one day you'll be healthy. One day. Then you got an AFC North showdown between the Baltimore Ravens and the Cleveland Browns. The Ravens, oh boy, what a game. Going off to a slow start against the Buccaneers. Buccaneers went up 10-0, and then the Ravens said, I'm going to kill you now. And they did. Lamar Jackson, 5 passing touchdowns. Derrick Henry running all over them. And the Ravens right now are just looking like a very, very good football team. I know there's still going to be doubts and what happens when they get to the playoffs, but as of right now, the Ravens are hot. They're playing well. Lamar Jackson is rocking and rolling. I mentioned Derrick Henry before, and while there may be some questions about the secondary there, the Ravens are a really good football team. They're going to be taking on the Cleveland Browns, who, woof. Trade away Amari Cooper. Deshaun Watson's out for the season. And yeah, things are not going well in Cleveland. And considering all the turmoil that's going on there, it's never a good time to play the team that used to be theirs.
Stole it. He stole it.
And while it was great to see Nick Chubb come back and score a touchdown last week, for Cleveland, yeah, things are not looking pretty at all. Jameis Winston is going to get the start because fans have been calling for that forever, and Cleveland always listens to their fans. But taking a look at this game, I think that maybe the Browns are going to put up a decent fight because it's a divisional game. Maybe it won't be super high scoring, but ultimately the Ravens should win this game. The offense of the Browns is just pitiful right now, and while I wish Nick Chubb nothing but the absolute best, I don't see them being able to keep up with the Ravens this week. And so because of that, Baltimore, you get the win. Following that, you got the Tennessee Titans taking on the Detroit Lions. The Titans making breaking news this morning as they traded wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins to the Kansas City Chiefs for a 5th rounder that could turn into a 4th. Titans fans everywhere going, hey, if I can't be happy, nobody can, because it is rough going with the Tennessee Titans. They lost to the Bills, and the worst thing is, and it's really not fair for Titans fans, that they had a little hope in that game. And then the Bills took over.
Does anyone ever display the slightest sensitivity over the problems of a fellow individual? No. No. A resounding no.
Hey, sorry I took so long.
Oh, that's okay, really. Don't worry.
They're going to be taking on the Detroit Lions, who we mentioned before are on a hot streak right now. Just ended the undefeated streak of the Minnesota Vikings, the purple incarnation of Satan. And the Lions, everything's going pretty well for them, besides losing Aiden Hutchinson for the season. Oh, and also Jamison Williams being suspended for 2 weeks, which, listen, he's not playing against the Packers, so I'll take it. But the Lions, even though they didn't really utilize him on Sunday, had -4 yards. J-Mo can be a great weapon in the passing game, and his absence in the Packers game could make a difference. However, for this week, I don't see it making much of a difference. Yes, the Titans' defense can be their strong suit at times, but their offense is complete poo-poo caca. So right now, the Lions are clicking on offense, they're clicking on defense, and special teams. Hey, Bates just hit a game winner. So because of that, I think the Lions should be able to make easy work of the Tennessee Titans. Titans, you're in super tank mode right now, and Lions, they're trying to go straight to the top. Following that, you got the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Miami Dolphins. The Cardinals able to get a big win on Monday Night Football against the Chargers. Their defense didn't allow the Chargers to score a single touchdown, though the Chargers also helped with that endeavor. And it came down to a game-winning field goal. And I gotta say, James Conner is an absolute stud. But this Cardinals team, these are the flashes we were talking about. I still don't know if they're going to be good enough to go to the playoffs. I talked about before the season that they were kind of my underdog team, my dark horse to potentially make it there. But there are definite deficiencies on this squad. However, we know that that offense is good enough to put up some points, especially if Marvin Harrison Jr. gets going, which he had some clutch catches this past Monday, but they need to get him more involved with this passing game. They're going to be taking on the Miami Dolphins, who... it's been a tough time to be a Dolphins fan, and the good news is that Tua is set to return to practice this week, eyeing a Sunday return, and if he does come back, I know Mike McDaniels is sure going to be happy to have Tua back.
I miss you so much it hurts sometimes.
And I had originally picked the Arizona Cardinals to win this game, but you know what? I'm feeling a little crazy. I think if Tua plays, which it seems to be on track that he is going to play on Sunday, I'm going to go with the Miami Dolphins to end their losing streak and get the win over the Arizona Cardinals. Tyreek Hill is amped up. I'm feeling whatever about it. I just think the Dolphins are going to win. So, Cardinals, I'm sorry for the flip-flop, but Miami has the Dolphins and the W. Following that, you got the New Jersey Jets taking on the New England Patriots. And, the bottom of the AFC East is starting to look ugly.
We're clearly not very good at this.
I know, we suck. I don't know how to work as a team.
Me neither. Well, I do. I have been in a team, okay? I don't want to brag, but I will. I was in the Avengers.
The Jets losing to Russell Wilson and the Steelers on Sunday Night Football, and it was not a pretty game. They made the big trade for Devontae Adams. Maybe this was going to make their offense go, and no. Shout out to the Steelers defense, but Breece Hall was their leading receiver and really was the best player on that squad that night. And the Jets, this is a must-win football game. And I think they have a chance to because they're taking on the New England Patriots, who just lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the Patriots were able to get off to a fast start against the Jags in that game. However, that defense allowed 20-plus points unanswered from the Jaguars, and they were able to roll the Patriots. Now, the good news for the Patriots is that Drake May looks pretty solid, and you're seeing some progress from week to week. And for his third start here, I imagine this is going to be quite the test going against this Jets secondary. Now, I will say the Patriots, maybe they would have a shot here considering if they ran the football really, really well and their defense was able to stop Aaron Rodgers. However, I do think the Jets, even though they are struggling right now, like I said, this is a must-win game for them as they are still trying to even think about the playoffs. The Patriots, I think that boat has come and gone. I don't think that's going to happen this year. So I'm going to go with the Jets to get a much-needed win here. And not only just because I think they're the better football team right now, but also because if they don't win, oh boy, it's going to get real ugly in New Jersey. So because of that, I'm choosing the Jets to get the win over the Patriots, and maybe they could start to turn this thing around. Then you have an NFC South rematch from earlier this season. You got the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Falcons. What the hell, man? Just when I have some confidence in you, I was like, oh, okay, they're starting to cook a little bit. Things are looking good. You lose to the Seattle Seahawks. Even though Bijan Robinson's doing fantastic, Kirk Cousins had a couple of turnovers. The Falcons really have no pass rush. And yeah, they lost that game to the Seattle Seahawks. And again, it's just frustrating because you know that they have the pieces, the talent is there, but the lack of pass rush, one, and just the lack of cohesiveness is starting to be an issue for me because it feels like they're just not reaching their potential. And I know it's week 8, but we're almost to the halfway mark of the season. Pick it up, Falcons. They're taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who had one of the worst Monday night games possible. And it's not just because they lost. It's because they got no Chris Godwin. They got no Mike Evans. And now they're expecting Baker to make something out of nothing.
Now, cook. What? Cook. You're a cook. Oh, I don't know if I can cook. Here. Cook. Now? Cook. I don't. Cook.
Mike Evans, he's going to miss some time. Chris Godwin, a dislocated ankle. He's going to miss the rest of the season. And all of a sudden, the Buccaneers, who were the front runners in the NFC South, that is all up in the air now. And while this was a classic Thursday night game from a few weeks ago, I don't know if it's going to be a classic this time. It is being played in Tampa, so that should help out the Buccaneers. But without their 2 top wide receivers, and I know their run game has gotten better, I do have the Falcons getting the win here. The way I can see the Buccaneers winning is if that defense is able to put pressure on Kirk Cousins and the defense is able to lift them to victory. But right now, I'm going to go with the Falcons to get the win just because of how decimated the Buccaneers are. And yeah, Falcons, you lose this game, trust broken forever. And Buccaneers, I'm just sorry. Then you got the Green Bay mother-loving Packers taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Packers coming away with a game-winning field goal. Brandon McManus sinking it, and the Packers were able to take down the Strouds. And now the Packers are going to be taking a trip to Florida against a team that they should definitely beat.
It's a trap.
Definitely not nervous there. Definitely not a trap game. No, definitely not at all. But the Packers defense playing phenomenally well. CJ Stroud had his career low for passing yards on Sunday. They were able to get pressure against an O-line that really wasn't doing CJ Stroud any favors. And even though the run defense was not the best as Joe Mixon was able to rock and roll, I'm still really happy with how this defense has played these past few weeks. On top of that, the offense, Jordan Love, yes, he's throwing turnovers, but good God, he is also throwing darts. And right now, heading into this game, the Jaguars, they're coming off a big win in London, but this Jaguars team has not been good this season. Trevor Lawrence, who I love dearly, they just have not been reaching their potential. Whether it was the game against the Bears where they came out looking super flat, and I thought that they would turn things around after going toe-to-toe with the Texans and beating the Colts, the Jaguars are still trying to find their footing. And if they're going to try and make the playoffs, this is going to be a must-win game for them. However, the Packers on offense and defense have been playing phenomenally well, and I think right now, barring any craziness, they should be able to get this win here. Yes, there's always a worry because the Jaguars can be a feisty team and they are playing in Florida, but I am going to go with the Packers to get a win here. They're going to be taking on another kitty cat in the Lions next week, but as of right now, Jaguars are in front of them. Kitty goes ow. Following that, you got the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Houston Texans. The Colts, it's not pretty how they're doing it, but they're getting wins. Anthony Richardson, sometimes it looks good, sometimes it doesn't look so good, but they got to see what they have out of the young QB before going over to Joe Flacco if they're ever going to make that decision. But without Jonathan Taylor, I can understand that maybe this offense isn't firing on all cylinders. They're going to be taking on the Houston Texans, and the Texans had opportunities to win that game against the Green Bay Packers, but CJ Stroud was under constant pressure, and while Joe Mixon had himself a really nice game, the passing game was just not there. However, the Texans had multiple defensive starters out, and so that definitely made a difference in that game, and that defense still was able to cause a bunch of turnovers from Jordan Love. So I think the Texans should be okay. Ultimately, I think the Texans will win this game because the Colts, they are just not playing pretty football right now, and I think the Texans just have more of a talented squad at the moment, and yes, while they did lose on Sunday, they should be able to beat the Colts. And I'm going to be honest, if the Strouds lose this one, I think they're going to send the scriptwriter to the moon.
How do I breathe in space?
That's the neat thing. You don't.
But then again, they are the scriptwriter. Maybe they'll go back to the moon? What moon? Anyway, Strouds win. Following that, you got the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. And both these teams are just hoping for some magic so that they both can return to the Super Bowl.
I've lost her, Marty. There's nothing left for me here.
All right, that's why you gotta come back with me.
Where?
Back to the future.
But the Eagles coming off a major win against a division rival, the New Jersey Giants, and welcome home Saquon Barkley, running all over the New Jersey Giants. And the Eagles, their defense has looked really good these past couple of weeks. And I know they're not playing the best opponents and their offense is still a bit shaky, but if they utilize Saquon Barkley and cater to their strengths and run the damn ball, the Eagles could be a pretty damn good team this year. It's just going to be about consistency and can they limit their mistakes. They're going to be taking on the Cincinnati Bengals, who had a win over the Cleveland Browns last week. A not so pretty win for the Bengals, but the Bengals, they need to win basically the majority of their games left in this season, and this is going to be a tough one. While this game is being played in Cincinnati, there's obvious questions about their defense, and if they can stop the run and Saquon Barkley, I think the Bengals have a decent shot here. It's all going to be about Joe Burrow and that offense. Are they going to be able to score points against what has been a very good Eagles defense? And I think that's going to be the matchup that I want to see. Now, if the Bengals are able to have a balanced attack and give the ball to Chase Brown, then maybe they will be able to pick up this win. However, for me, the Philadelphia Eagles right now, I just believe in their defense probably a little bit too much. And while Joe Burrow is fantastic, these slow starts and kind of lackadaisical games, I think that could wind up costing them this week. On top of that, if the Bengals are unable to stop Saquon Barkley, the Eagles should be able to put up points. And ultimately, this could wind up being a very low-scoring game, but I am going to go with the Eagles to get a win here. You know that both these teams need this win, and I wouldn't be surprised the Bengals were able to eke out a close one, but I'm going with Philly to get the W and saving Nick Sirianni's job at least another week. Then you got the New Orleans Saints taking on the LA Chargers. The Saints got their ass kicked on Thursday Night Football by the Denver Broncos. A returning Sean Payton, the Broncos ran all over them. And listen, the Saints are absolutely decimated on both sides of the ball. But yeah, to do that in front of Drew Brees, that's got to be disappointing. They're going to be taking on the Chargers, and Justin Herbert threw for nearly 350 yards, but 0 touchdowns, and the Chargers, they keep on charging.
I never thought I'd have to use this pepper spray. Ah! Somebody help me! Somebody help me!
And it's disappointing for the Chargers because not only could they have won that game multiple times, but I like their defense, I like Justin Herbert, and their run game. They definitely do need some extra wide receiver help. I'm waiting for that Mike Williams call any day now. But the good news is that they're going against the Saints. And while they did extend Alvin Kamara for 2 more years, I don't think that's going to help them right now. Like I said before, the Saints are decimated right now, and they're just not playing good football. Dennis Allen, I don't know how much longer he has in New Orleans. And as of right now, I'm going to go with the Chargers to get this W. Hopefully they can score a touchdown or 2 this week. But LA, yeah, I have you getting the win. Then you have what could be one of the best games this week. You got the Buffalo Bills taking on the Seattle Seahawks. And both these teams starting to heat back up.
Finally, a worthy opponent. Our battle will be legendary.
The Bills getting a win over the Titans, as I mentioned earlier. Josh Allen still not throwing any interceptions. Ray Davis is doing well. James Cook is back. And yeah, this Bills offense, especially now with Amari Cooper, you got a feeling that maybe things can start looking real good for them. They're going to be taking on the Seattle Seahawks, as we mentioned before, had a big win over the Atlanta Falcons. And look, what happens when you get a healthy defensive line back? It's crazy, isn't it? Geno Smith is having himself a pretty damn good season. I know that DK Metcalf was banged up in that game, and that's going to hurt. However, if the Seahawks offensive line can keep Geno Smith safe and they can utilize Kenneth Walker, watch out, Seahawks. As they get healthier and healthier throughout the season, they could wind up winning that division. I mentioned that in power rankings yesterday. And I'm not going to lie, I don't think this is going to be a walk in the park for the Buffalo Bills. I think this is going to be a really tough game. But talking about the Bills, Josh Allen has been playing really good football. And if they are able to utilize the run against the Seattle Seahawks, I think they should be able to win this game. I'm curious to see how Amari Cooper's going to do this week, but also how Keon Coleman's going to do after having a big game on Sunday, because Amari Cooper's presence on that team is just going to help that offense all around. So right now, I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills to get a win. I'm not super duper confident in this pick. And if the Seahawks are able to dominate on defense and cause some problems and maybe even some turnovers for Josh Allen, I could see them getting this W in Seattle because it's going to be loud. But I'm going with Buffalo to get a win here, continuing to roll. And yeah, the AFC East is theirs for the taking. Then you have a game that, why is this not in prime time? The past few years it's been on Thursday Night Football. It's fine. You got the Chicago Bears taking on the Washington Commanders. And listen, I know that we all want to see these rookie QBs go head to head. But Commanders fans, they just want Jayden Daniels to be healthy.
What's the matter, Colonel Sanders? Chicken?
But right now, the expectations of Bears fans are going at ludicrous speed because the Bears coming off a bye week. Caleb Williams is looking pretty damn good, progressing every single week. The defense is looking good. The run game is looking good. And all of a sudden, things are starting to get a little optimistic around Chicago. Of course, we talk about the one thing that is plaguing the Bears and their fans right now is the fact that they've been winning these games against not so great football teams. However, that's not the Bears' fault. Again, they're beating the teams that are in front of them, and they're going to have a challenge against the Commanders this week. And for the Commanders, they just have to be super safe with Jayden Daniels because it is not worth it to put him in, potentially get injured just for the sake of this game when they got a long season ahead of them, and they're currently leading their division. Brian Robinson coming back made a difference, and Marcus Mariota looked really nice against the Panthers. Yes, it's the Panthers, and the Bears have a much better defense, but the Commanders, I don't think are going to rush Jayden Daniels back because it just doesn't make any sense. And so because of that, I'm going to err on the side of caution and say that Jayden Daniels doesn't play this Sunday just so he could get another week to rest and they can preserve their season and their franchise QB. So because of that, I am going to go with the Chicago Bears to get the win here. I think their defense can cause some turnovers if Marcus Mariota is playing, and going up against the Washington defense, which is one of their weak points, I think the Bears should be able to score some points. So because of that, even though I would have loved to see this QB matchup, and I think the Commanders could have won, I'm going with Chicago to get the win and let the hopium continue to flow. Then you got the Carolina Panthers taking on the Denver Broncos. It's been 10 years since their Super Bowl, and time has not been kind to either team.
I just had one of those days where you wake up and say, where did the last 10 years of my life go?
The Panthers getting their ass kicked by Marcus Mariota and the Washington Commanders. It was also reported that after Andy Dalton was involved in a car accident this past week, that Bryce Young will be getting the start against that Denver defense, which, good luck. And yeah, things are pretty doom and gloom right now, but the good news is you at least get to keep your draft pick. They're going to be taking on the Denver Broncos, who all of a sudden found their run game. Of course, it came at the expense of a decimated Saints defense, but the Broncos, if they're able to actually commit to the run, look, it helps out their rookie quarterback. Of course, the Broncos defense has been stellar this season. They have been really, really good. That secondary is phenomenal. And Bo Nix, yeah, he's okay. It takes him a little while to settle down, and I think it's still tough to gauge his ceiling just with what that offense is going through right now. They do have a lack of weapons, and right now, I just can't in good faith pick the Panthers to win anything, and while it'd be really, really funny to watch Brandon Perna lose to the Panthers, I am going to go with the Broncos to get a win at home. Panthers, I'm so sorry, and Broncos, hope. Then you have an AFC West showdown between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Vegas Raiders. Chiefs, well, they're still undefeated. Knocked off the San Francisco 49ers. Kareem Hunt is just grinding teams into the ground. The defense is just playing tough football. And Patrick Mahomes is doing enough to win games, even if it's throwing interceptions at this point, because nobody can beat the Chiefs. Oh yeah, and they just got DeAndre Hopkins. They're going to be taking on the Las Vegas Raiders, who, good God, they got problems. And listen, Raiders fans talked a lot of crap last year after beating the Chiefs, but since then, things haven't been going so well.
What's the matter? Lives flashing before your eyes? Pick it up. Pick it up.
The Raiders just signed Desmond Ridder, trying to figure out their QB woes, and that offense, besides Brock Bowers, really doesn't have a lot going for it. I was worried about their run game heading into the season, and I thought maybe their defense could be really good and overcompensate for their lack of run game, but no, it's also their lack of passing game as well, because this offense is just bad. And the Chiefs, while the Raiders were able to beat them the last time they met on Christmas, I don't see that happening here. It will take a Christmas miracle in October to make that happen. And so because of that, I'm choosing the Chiefs to get the win here over the Raiders. And yeah, they continue their undefeated streak. Then you got the Dallas Cowboys taking on the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday Night Football. And honestly, looks like the Super Bowl window is closing a little bit for both these teams.
What did I do? I didn't do anything wrong. I swear I'll get you the money. I just need a little more time. Oh my God, you really punched me.
The Cowboys. Yikes. Big old yikes. They lost to the Detroit Lions. The good news is that was 2 weeks ago, so maybe they remembered how to play football. They're coming off a bye this week, one that they really, really need, because maybe they will find an offense or a defense by the time they return. I know Micah Parsons being absent from that defense is definitely making a difference, but that offense is just not functioning. They don't have a run game. CeeDee Lamb is really their only option there, and yeah, if teams sniff that out, the Dallas Cowboys are not going to win many football games. They're going to be taking on the 49ers, who we mentioned before just lost to the Kansas City Chiefs. Brock Purdy had a bunch of turnovers. That offense does not look great because they don't have any wide receivers to throw to because everybody's getting injured. And taking a look at this game, this is a game that both teams really want to win because they absolutely hate each other. The good news is that Zeke definitely has some familiarity with the 49ers, so maybe you could see him at offensive line again, snapping some balls. But I am going to pick the 49ers to get this W because right now, I just don't trust the Dallas Cowboys. Their offense, like I said before, is anemic, and even though Brock Purdy really doesn't have anyone to throw the ball to, as long as they're able to at least run the ball efficiently, which I think they can do against the Dallas Cowboys, I think the 49ers should be able to escape with a win. I don't think it's going to be a pretty game. I think it could be a potentially low-scoring game as both these offenses are struggling, but going with the 49ers to get the win. Cowboys fans, yeah, this could get ugly. And then finally on Monday Night Football, why is this on primetime? You got the New Jersey Giants taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we got a dumpster fire matchup. And one of these teams lately hasn't been looking too shabby.
My life might be a dumpster fire, but it doesn't mean I can't look good.
It is not the Giants. The Giants getting run over by former teammate Saquon Barkley. And while their defensive line is definitely the strong point of that team, it was not last week. Danny Dimes not even throwing 100 yards. And while I love Malik Neighbors, yeah, that Giants offense just doesn't do anything for me. And on top of that, losing Andrew Thomas for the year, it could be a long rest of the season. They're going to be taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers, who... they're riding, baby. Russell Wilson leading that team to victory. Najee Harris having himself a nice game. The Steelers causing some turnovers for Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. And the Steelers, look at them go. We know that they were going to be a solid team just because of their defense and because of Mike Tomlin. But I'm really curious to see how Russell Wilson is going to play the rest of the season. Because if he can play the way he did against the Jets and not turn the ball over and at least just move it efficiently, the Steelers could win some football games. I think they should be able to knock off the Giants, even if their offense is not doing well. I think the Steelers defense should be able to suffocate whatever the hell the Giants offense is going to throw at them. And so because of that, being played at home, I'm going with the Steelers to get the win on Monday Night Football, continuing their win streak. And who knows? Steelers maybe go to Super Bowl. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Who do you got winning these matchups this week? Let me know. You know, I saw me at TomGrossiComedy.com or at TomGrossiComedy, all social media, see down below. A big shout and thank you to all the patrons and YouTube members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.